It's time for the guide that you've been waiting for. Hey guys, Otaker back with another video, and today we are going to be doing the introductory guide to Canine. Out of the 3 archetypes that are being introduced in Justice Hunters, this is the final archetype I have not done an introductory guide on, and sure enough, as of recording this video, Justice Hunters comes out this Friday. So just a quick reminder how these introductory guides are going to work. We're going to be going over each individual card of the archetype, a small sample list of the deck, pros and cons of playing the deck, and even a combo or two of how to navigate through the deck. We will even slightly be touching upon what hand traps or tech options are good to play against the deck for people who are looking to counter the deck. And then just a quick reminder, again, we will not be going over anything super in-depth about the deck. For something like that, please leave a comment down below if you are interested in seeing a more in-depth guide of Canine. Full disclaimer, when we talk about Canine in today's video, we are going to be talking about predominantly Vanquish Soul Canine because that is the more successful version of the deck. We will not be going over pure Canine because, quite frankly, it's ass. Before we do jump on into the introductory guide, though, I have noticed that a great deal of you that are watching my video right now are not currently subscribed to the channel. So if you like competitive-based content, in-depth guides, and more, consider subscribing to the channel. But also, don't forget to leave a like on this video and comment down below if you are interested in more content like this. And if you would like to further support the channel, consider using my TCG affiliate link and my Dueling Guard affiliate link. All links will be in the description down below. All right, so to start with the pros, and I think the biggest pro is just, quite frankly, any deck that just plays inherent level 5s just has the ability to have this splashed into it. Now, Canine is projected to be a splashable engine in just about any deck, but the decks that can just make it easier via their own methods, aka having level 5s of their own, to be able to go into the generic rank 5 Ripper, will be able to have it splash even more. Not to mention, on top of that, the entire deck revolves around your opponent activating monster effects in hand or graveyard, which means hand traps, if they interact with you on your turn, just turns them on. And Ripper, on top of that, can negate monster effects in hand, meaning they can negate Nibiru, Droll and Lockbird if you get to it before you add cards to hand. Like, just overall, the deck is a huge counter to hand traps. But also, one thing that a lot of people are not talking about is they get turned on from effects in the graveyard as well, meaning that graveyard-focused decks are also at threat of this. And then the biggest pro of the deck is, quite frankly, it's splashable in the best deck in the room, which is going to be Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul on its own has 2 level 5 monsters in Holy Sue and Xiaolong, meaning they can just generically make Ripper, which then can bridge them into Canine cards. But on top of that, the Canine cards are different attributes, some of which are Dark, Earth, and, you know, Vanquish Soul really likes different attributes. As for cons, the biggest con to the deck is if your opponent doesn't interact with you from their hand or their graveyard, you're not really doing much. And so it's because of that Canine is going to thrive more in other decks rather than its own, because if your opponent doesn't play the game, for the most part, neither are you. But overall, the Canine engine is pretty limited on what it can do on its own. Like I said, it will heavily be thriving on other decks to kind of pick up the slack that it does not have. But let's go ahead and go over each individual card. We have K900 Lupus. It's a level 5 Earth Beast Warrior. An Xyz monster that has this card's material gains the following effect. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of K9 Lupus once per turn. During the main phase, if your opponent activated a monster effect in hand or graveyard, quick effect, you can special summon this card from hand or graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. During your opponent's turn, you can quick effect immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon using this card you control. The Lupus alone is a monster you typically want to be ending on, but it is an Earth monster for Vanquish Soul, which means Caesar is online if you have this in the opening hand. It has the ability to special itself from hand, so even if you have it in hand, to be able to reveal off like Caesar or your Vanquish Soul cards. So after you no longer need him to reveal, you can use his effect to special from hand if your opponent has turned his effect on, and then be able to use his effect to quick Xyz summon on your opponent's turn. Not to mention, on top of that, the banish it when it leaves the field effect is not relevant, because when it becomes an Xyz material, when it's detached, it's no longer considered leaving the field, so it still goes to the graveyard. Next is the starter for the deck, K917 Izuna. It is a level 5 Earth Warrior monster. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon this card without tributing. You can only use each of the following effects of K9 Izuna once per turn. During the main phase, if your opponent has activated a monster effect in hand or graveyard, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal special summon, you can send 1 K9 card from deck to graveyard, except Izuna. So regardless of how you look at this card is a 1-card starter, whether it's your turn or your opponent's turn. Say your opponent wins the die roll, this card's in your hand, and they activate a monster effect in hand on their turn. You use her effect, special her, use her effect, dump Lupus. Lupus will then come out the graveyard because he is also live, and then use his effect to quick Xyz into most likely one of the Xyz monsters. The only one to go into is going to be Ripper, but the Lupus also just can generically Xyz summon. He doesn't say go into a canine Xyz, he just says quick Xyz. But also on top of that, if you win the die roll, this is just a free normal summon because your opponent will have more than 2 cards in their opening hand, obviously. So you can just normal her without tributing, and then, again, proceed to make plays. However, if your opponent doesn't activate a monster effect in hand during your turn, that Lupus ain't coming out the graveyard. That being said, there are workarounds for it. K966B Lantern is a level 5 Dark Pyro monster. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon this without tributing. You can only use each of the following effects of Lantern once per turn. If this card is in your hand, you can target one level 5 non-Pyro K9 monster in your graveyard, special summon this card and that card, but they cannot be used as Xyz material for a light monster. During your main phase, you can add 1 K9 spell or trap from deck to hand. So typically, if your opponent's not interacting with you and you open like Azuna plus Lantern, you can go normal Azuna, dump the Lupus, and then Lantern to bring them back out. Now, the big restriction here for Lantern and even JUHU, as we'll get into in a moment, the monsters summoned off their effects cannot be used as Xyz material for a light Xyz monster. And that's because Konami thought of Paradise Smasher, and I'm sure everyone knows about it, but we'll get into it when we get into the deck build. Next is K966A JUHU. It is a level 5 Aqua Dark monster. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon this card without tributing. You can only use each of the following effects of JUHU once per turn. You can reveal this card and 1 other level 5 monster in your hand, special summon both, but they cannot be used as material for an Xyz summon of a light monster. During the main phase, you can add 1 non-Aqua Canine monster from your deck to your hands. The one thing to note here is that JUHU can reveal any level 5 monster, not just a Canine monster. So you can reveal like Xiaolong or Holy Sue if you're playing Vanquish Soul. Just very, very powerful. But then to also note on top of that, JUHU and Lantern, when they special summon, don't negate the effect of the monster they're summoning. So you can special summon a level 5 from your hand that maybe gets an on-summon effect and still get that effect. The only restriction is that the monsters being summoned cannot be used for light Xyz monsters. And fair enough, but not very restrictive at the same time. There are 3 spell cards. The first one is K9LC Release Restraint. It's a quick play. Target 1 K9 Xyz monster or 1 rank 5 Xyz monster you control. Special summon from the extra deck 1 K9 Xyz monster with a different name by using that monster you control. This is treated as an Xyz summon and transfers materials to the summoned monster. At the end of the battle phase, if a K9 monster battled this turn, you can set this card from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Release Restraint once per turn. So a big thing to know here is you don't have to target exclusively a K9 monster. You can target any rank 5 and then rank it up. Typically what you're going to be going into is Werewolf, and we'll get to the Xyz monsters momentarily, but you do have to summon a K9 monster off of this effect. Next is K9X Forced Release, another quick play spell. During the main phase, target 1 K9 Xyz monster you control, special summon from the extra deck 1 K9 Xyz monster with a different name by using that monster you control. This is treated as an Xyz summon and transfer its materials to the summoned monster. Then you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls. At the end of the battle phase, if a Canadian monster you control battled this turn, you can set this card from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Forced Release once per turn. So this is pretty much cut and dry the same effect as the first spell, but you do have to target specifically a Canine Xyz monster. You cannot just target any generic rank 5. And you do get a bonus pop effect at the end of the Xyz summon. And then the last spell is a Case for K9. It is a continuous spell. When this card is activated, you can add 1 K9 monster from deck to hand. K9 monsters you control gain 900 attack during any turn in which your opponent has activated a monster effect in hand or graveyard. If this card in the spell and trap zone is destroyed by card effect, you can set 1 K9 quick play spell from deck or graveyard. You can only use each effect of a Case for K9 once per turn, and you can only activate 1 Case for K9 once per turn. So this is basically 3 more copies of Azuna. That being said, in terms of the engine, this one is not making the cut typically because this would be more for a pure style build, but also on top of that, most decks are playing as an engine, so you're seeing like 3 Azuna, like 3 JUHU. It depends on the deck, honestly, what your ratios are going to be. Then we have a trap card, which is K9EW Special Release Experiment. Special summon 1 K9 monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can special summon 1 K9 Xyz monster from your extra deck by using that monster as material. This is treated as an Xyz summon, but destroy the monster special summon from the extra deck during the end phase of the next turn. During the end phase, you can banish this card from the graveyard. Then you can target one K9 quick play spell in your graveyard to set it. You can only use each effect of K9 EW special release experiment once per turn. This one's like, okay, even in like the pure random builds that I've seen, which again, I'm not going to be talking about pure K9 today because it really just isn't a good deck, but this is not making the cut in the engine. There are 3 Xyz monsters, 2 of which do see play in the engine, whereas the other one does not. The first one is K9X Werewolf. It is a rank 9 light beast warrior. It requires 2 level 9 monsters, so it can be generically made, but typically you're making it off of the quick play spells. While this card has material, it can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials attached to it. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick play, you can attach 1 material from this card, then activate this effect depending on whose turn it is. If it is your turn, banish up to 1 card from your opponent's field and graveyard. And if it's your opponent's turn, you can look at your opponent's hand and banish 1 card from it face up until the end phase. So this is reactive to any card or effect. It does not have to be from hand or graveyard. This is like the exception to the entire gimmick of the deck. The next Xyz monster is K900 Hound. It is a rank 5 light beast warrior. Again, generic 2 level 5 monsters. Cannot be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effects the turn it is special summoned. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect, this card gains 500 attack when that effect resolves. Once per turn, during the standby phase, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card on the field and banish it. So this is the rank 5 that, for the engine at least, is not making the cut, because it just really doesn't do anything for the decks that it's being played in. In a pure version of the deck, I could see it being like a one of, but overall, like, it's kind of meh. It's not really doing much as opposed to like the hand rip. And again, just like the rank 9, it is responsive to any monster effect, not just monster effects in hand or graveyard, but it is just, again, it's kind of meh. Now, the main Xyz monster you will be seeing in every build, because even the rank 9 doesn't make it into every cut, is K917 Ripper. It is a rank 5 wind warrior monster, 2 level 5 generic. Again, they're all generic, and that's what makes it so splashable. You can detach 1 material from this card, add 1 K9 card from deck to hand. Then, if your opponent has activated a monster effect this turn, you can set 1 K9 quick play spell from deck or graveyard. When your opponent activates a monster effect in hand or graveyard, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, negate that effect. You can only use each effect of Ripper once per turn. So again, Ripper is like your Nibiru protection, but it really can just protect you from any like annoying hand trap like Drone Lockbird or Ash, because if you do the first add of your turn off of Ripper to add like a K9 monster and then they try and droll you can just tell them no. I don't know how much I'd recommend that depending on the deck you're playing, but you can do that. But you do get the bonus effect as long as they've activated a monster effect at all that turn, even if it wasn't from hand, it can be on the field. So like the K9 Xyz monsters have exceptions on where those effects can be activated. Like the rank 9 can just proc off of any card effect, not just monsters, whereas like the 2 rank 5s are monster effects in general. But the negate effect from Ripper is exclusively monster effects from hand or graveyard. So still a negate effect for hand traps and even like pesky graveyard decks, but overall, like if they just activate a monster effect on field, she's not doing much. All right, so the build we're looking at is going to be Vanquish Soul K9. Again, I don't want to talk about just K9 as a deck because the deck by itself is really just not that good. It is too heavily reliant on your opponent being able to interact with you, and if they don't interact with you, the deck doesn't really perform. So the deck is going to predominantly be an engine, and it is currently going to be in the best deck in the room, which is going to be Vanquish Soul K9. Now, this is by no means the most optimal build or even like the exact ratios that the TCG players will be playing. This is a list that I pulled from YGO Pro that was a topping list from a recent OCG event. I just cut Max C and put in Dimension Shifter and an extra Dogoran. So for the deck list, we are playing 2 Dogoran, 1 Caesar Valius, 2 Heavy Borger, 2 of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, 1 of Jerusalem, 1 Magnamut, 1 Shifter, 3 Xiaolong, 1 Lupus, 3 Azuna, 3 Jokul, 1 Lantern, 3 Holy Sue, 3 Rosin, 3 Madlove, 3 Ash, 1 Prosp, 1 Rhoda, 3 Stake Your Soul, 1 Field Spell, and 1 Snow Devil. So Dogoran is something that the deck is seeing play with for a couple of reasons. So one, we are in a scenario where like kaijus are not the worst thing in the world, especially a deck that can like kind of play well with one, because Dogoran is a fire monster, which means he's a fire reveal. But on top of that, like decks like Lunalight and stuff where there's not an easy way to out the Liger Dancer. Like, you just Dogeran them. Now, the deck does have a couple other outs that, in case they don't play the Flame Kaiju, but this is an option. On top of that, Dogeran has a fun little interaction with Mad Love, whereas Mad Love has the ability to bounce a monster from the field that has the lowest defense back to the hand. So you just Kaiju your opponent, summon the Mad Love, and then use her effect to put the Kaiju back in your hand is really powerful. But on top of that, you know, instead of running like Humongous, who's like an Earth monster, Dogeran is the lowest defense Kaiju that also just so happens to have a lower defense than every Vanquish Soul monster. Meaning that unless your opponent somehow has a lower defense monster on the field, Dogeran will always have the lowest defense, meaning you can always put him back in hand. One Caesar Valles is all you need. I'm seeing some people like toy around with 2, but I don't agree with it personally. 2 Heavy Borger, you just kind of want to always have one in rotation because Borger is able to get hit with Bestials, so you want to make sure you always have one. He just exploits the time rules kind of like Fiendsmith Lacrima did a little back when, but on top of that, drawing power. Phantasme is probably one that we won't actually see get played in here in the TCG, but Phantasme is still like a fine card. Malice will still be in the format, and he is a dark reveal. There'll be plenty of Link focused decks, or decks that at least play one Link monster, so Phantasma is not the worst option. Plus, he's a dragon, so he can be searched off of Magnemite. Magnemite and Druis Worm, because they're like pseudo hand traps that just benefit the deck. Again, like the Magnemite can search Caesar Vallius on top of that, but they are dark monsters, so they can be revealed off of plenty of the effects in the deck, and also interact with your opponent. We have Dimension Shifter. Both K9 and Vanquish Soul don't really care about Shifter all that much, and on top of that, this is one of the few decks where like Shifter is a live card still, even if you can't activate him from hand, because he's a dark monster. You can just sit there in your hand and reveal him constantly. 3 Xiaolong, because Xiaolong is like one of the best cards in the deck, simply because if a monster is revealed in your hand at any point in the turn, you can summon him. And sure enough, JUHU also reveals monsters in hand, so Xiaolong can summon himself from that as well. 1 Lupus, because we're just dumping him off of Azuna, and he's recyclable. Azuna, because she's the 1-card starter for the entire K9 line. 3 JUHU, because we have Holy Sue and Xiaolong in the deck, which means you can still reveal any of them to still summon JUHU and that monster from the hand, and then just get like a free Ripper on the resolution of that. Playing 1 Lantern, simply because Lantern is less flexible than JUHU. JUHU can reveal any level 5 monster in hand or a K9 monster, whereas Lantern, to revive from graveyard, has to target a K9 monster. It's not as flexible. Lantern is more for like a grind game scenario where you search him later and you're expecting to not, you know, kill your opponent, so you want him ready for the next turn, so you can just target like JUHU or Azuna in graveyard who's later been detached and special them back and make another rank 5. 3 Holy Sue. Holy Sue is literally the best card in the deck. Holy Sue literally gives Vanquish Soul K9 the ability to literally be the next best deck in the format, because Holy Sue plus Azuna just makes it so you can pretty much just build an entire Vanquish Soul K9 board on your opponent's turn if you lose the die roll. Vanquish Soul Rosin is just your 1-card starter for the entire deck, and we'll get into that into the combo. 3 Mad Love, because Mad Love's actually like good now. For the longest time, Mad Love was kind of whatever. Mad Love was searching like Continue or the Trap card, which later made other searches later in the deck kind of pointless, but Mad Love can now search the field spell, which can then get you further into the deck. Like, Mad Love is on the same level as Rosin in terms of like 1-card starter almost. Ash Blossom's just like the best hand trap in the deck because 1, it's Ash Blossom, but 2, she's a fire monster, which means she's a reveal off of many effects in the deck. Prosperity, I can actually see Prosperity not getting played here in the TCG because they kind of do value a lot of their extra deck, but on top of that, it's like not really needed. The deck actually has plenty of ways to find other pieces. Like, the deck's very consistent. Rhoda is simply just here because Rosin's a warrior, and Rosin, like I said, is your 1-card starter, so this is just a 4th copy of Rosin. 3 copies of Stake Your Soul, which is 3 more copies of Rosin, or whatever piece you're missing, honestly. Like, you have so many reveals off of this. You can reveal an Earth to summon out the Caesar. You can reveal Mad Love to get the Borg. Like, you can reveal so many attributes, just kind of get your deck moving. 1 field spell and 1 trap, that's really all you need. Like, they're searchable, and realistically, you won't need them after you use them the first time. The trap card literally is just like a time card on top of Borger, but also board wipe, which is also really helpful. In terms of the extra deck, we have 1 Zeus, 1 Typhon, 1 Werewolf, 1 Chaos Nash Knight, 1 Umbral Horror Masquerade, 1 Valen, the Super Psy Sky Blaster, 2 Rippers, 1 Nash Knight, 1 Masquerade, 1 Rocks, 1 Little Knight, 1 IP, and 2 Rocket the Vanquisher. Now, for Werewolf, the side deck for the event that I pulled this from did run one of the quick play spells for K9, so that way you could make the Werewolf, but it's not in the main deck, and I don't want to talk about the side deck all that much. The whole Nash Knight package is simply just to go into Umbral Horror Masquerade. So like Nash Knight, use effect to attach Masquerade from the extra deck, and then, you know, make the big Nash Knight, and then use his effect to go into Umbral Horror Masquerade. Like, it's like a 4-card engine for the extra deck, and it's still good. Zeus is just Zeus. You play a bunch of Xyz monsters, so, you know, when you're done with one, you can just overlay into a Zeus monster. Rocks is a funny little snare. I thought Rocks was kind of bad on release, but Rocks actually does have application, because decks like Lunalight or like Malice, where they have these big bodies, Rocks can just like go into it. Mainly just Lunalight, because they have an entire towers that can only be destroyed by battle, essentially. And so Rocks just makes it so like Caesar Valleys can swing over it. Big thing to note here too is, as I mentioned, we were talking about the individual cards, Lupus is a generic quick effect Xyz summon. So if you are playing your turn and your opponent interacts with, like, say, an Ash Blossom, and you have Azuna in hand, you then go Azuna effect to summon her from hand, use her effect to dump Lupus, and because a monster effect was activated in hand that turn from your opponent, Lupus comes back. Lupus uses his effect to summon out Ripper, so the next monster effect they activate in hand is no longer live. But on top of that, Lupus can just kind of adapt to the scenario. So say your opponent won the die roll and they're playing out their turn, you have Azuna in hand, and your opponent activates like backup at Ignister, and you go Azuna effect summon, Azuna effect dump, Lupus come back, and then Lupus go into Nash Knight, and then Nash Knight's a quick effect, so you can actually make your way into the Umbral Horror Masquerade on your opponent's turn. And Umbral Horror Masquerade is not only an Omni Negate, but it's a hand rip, and it nukes your opponent's life points in half. And I think that's like the scariest thing here. And I didn't talk about this really in the pros and cons, because I was too focused on like the K9 part of the deck, but realistically this is an introductory guide for Vanquish Soul K9 as a whole, because this is just going to be the better version, but K9 will be an engine, so I wanted to draw attention to that. But Vanquish Soul K9 will be incredibly oppressive. We are seeing at not only the NAWCQ but the EUWCQ that Vanquish Soul on its own is able to keep up with Malice and Mitsurugi Ryzeal and Orchist and all of that. It's able to put up a fight. These K9 cards are going to skyrocket it through the roof. In terms of Holy Sue and Azuna, these cards are fully capable of building their board on your turn. If you go first, you win the die roll, and they open Holy Sue and Azuna, just scoop it up. They're going to beat you before you can even establish a board, and then they're going to OTK you on their turn. But if they even only open Holy Sue, that's enough, honestly. That is enough to establish a decent board on your turn and then just kind of beat you down on theirs. In terms of cards to maybe consider for this deck, so really just anything that's level 5. So like Disablaster is a thing if you're trying to play like other decks. Obviously not Vanquish Soul K9, but in terms of Vanquish Soul K9, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about like a Rescue Ace package with Impulse and Fire Attacker, being able to just draw a couple extra cards to be able to further just hopefully search for that Holy Sue or the Azuna. But on top of that, it's a fire monster, so it's a reveal for your Vanquish Soul cards. Seeing a lot of people talk about maybe Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. I think this one's kind of I think realistically Paradise Smasher is the one that everyone's going to go for, especially since he's not getting banned anytime soon, apparently. Then we have Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon, just a generic rank 5 monster that can just straight up OTK your opponent and just win the game on the spot. This card is incredibly powerful. If you are playing against Vanquish Soul K9, be aware of this card, because if you expend all resources on them and they have enough bodies to go into this, they will just kill you. Silent Honor Dark, again, just like another Nash Knight scenario, but it is also just a generic rank 5 monster. So if you get 3 bodies on the board, it is still an option as well. 2 random rank 5s that a lot of people bought out, but I don't think this is going to see a lot of play, is Adreus, Keeper of Armageddon, and Tyrus, Keeper of Genesis. I just think these are a little too slow for what the deck is capable of doing. Then we have Chronomaly Vimana, and we have Paradise Smasher. Paradise Smasher, I think, we'll see the most play up until the point he eventually gets banned on the next Forbidden Limited list, hopefully. But it just reads win the game. Now, How do you beat this deck? That's probably what a lot of you are asking, for people who are just here to maybe learn how to beat the deck. I'm not going to go into super in-depth, like, oh, this is the best cards to be teching, because realistically, it's going to be a scenario where we learn it as we go. First card I want to talk about that can maybe, like, I don't want to say beat the deck, is Perulia. Vanquish Soul K9 summons a lot from the hand, and I mean a lot. And so if they're going to be giving you card advantage every time they summon from hand, it will hopefully promote them to not do that as much, at least on the turn you activated Perulia. The perks with like Perulia is if you are going first and you open Perulia and you know you're going against Vanquish Soul K9, just shotgun that on draw phase, and hopefully they don't have a Zuna in hand to like punish that. But then another card is definitely the Dominus cards. I mentioned before that like hand traps are going to be the most optimal scenario. Now Imperm's a little less effective against the Vanquish Soul cards because they can just nope the fuck out if they have like Borger or Caesar in hand. But even so, even if you miss the target with Imperm, if you have like Purge or Impulse in hand, depending on the deck you're playing, like Yummy or Malice or even Orchist or Mitsurugi, then the trap card, even if you miss, it'll be in graveyard. So then the next effect will have more ramifications. But cards like Impulse and Purge, and even like some Song of the Dominators a little bit, will have a lot of effect for this deck. Impulse, I think, is the better one because it has more application against like the Vanquish Soul cards, because if you have a trap in grave and they go like heavy Borger target Rosin, you can just impulse them and then that Borger goes to grave. He's not usable, he's not revealable, he's in the graveyard. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's go over one specific combo, and that's if you open Vanquish Soul Rosin, because Rosin is, again, like the one card starter for the entire Vanquish Soul engine. There's a couple things that we need to kind of take into consideration. The first thing being is obviously our opponent can't have any sort of interaction for this exact scenario. So that's the first thing we're assuming. But on top of that, Vanquish Soul is heavily reliant on what is in your opening hand, but with the K9 cards, it's also heavily reliant on how your opponent, if they even do, interacts with you. But on top of that, because we need some sort of attributes available to us in our opening hand to reveal off of like the Vanquish Soul cards, I put two of like the most dead available cards in the deck, which is going to be Dogaran and Dimension Shifter for the fire and the dark. So again, the deck is just heavily reliant on what is in your opening hand. So take everything you see with a grain of salt, but this is what the deck is capable of off of just Vanquish Soul Rosin alone. So we're going to start by normal summoning the Rosin effect to add the Xiaolong to hand. So depending on what the rest of your hand looks like, you can add like Holy Sue, but we add Holy Sue later on down the road for completely different reasons that we'll get into momentarily. We're going to activate the Rosin effect to reveal the Dogaran in hand, so that way he cannot be destroyed by card effect this turn. Main reason is because we want to turn on the Xiaolong effect. We're going to activate Xiaolong in hand to special summon the Xiaolong. We will then link one into the Rock of the Vanquisher Rock to add the Rosin back to hand, so that way we have two fires in hand for the now Xiaolong effect. Reveal both fires in hand to add the Holy Sue. We will activate the Holy Sue, reveal the Rosin in hand, special summon the Holy Sue, and then we will activate the Holy Sue, revealing the Rosin and the Dimension Shifter to special summon from the deck the Mad Love. Mad Love effect to add the field spell to hand. We will then activate the field spell from our hand, use its effect to target the Xiaolong to add the Heavy Borger. We will then rank 5 into the K9 17 Ripper with the Xiaolong and the Holy Sue, use its effect to add a K9 monster from deck to hand. We will add the JUHU to hand. We will then activate the Heavy Borger, bouncing the Mad Love from the field back to the hands to special summon the Heavy Borger. Borger effect to reveal a dark monster to then draw one card. We draw the Ash Blossom, and that's really it. Like, there's so much more the deck can do. I want to preface that. There is so much more that the deck can do. If we have another level 5 in our hand, we can then activate the JUHU to special him and the level 5 from our hand to then go into like the Nash Knight, and the Nash Knight can go into the Umbral Horror Masquerade. But I wanted to just show like how far Rosin alone can get you, and this is pretty dang far. The Borger draws you a card, and then on your opponent's turn can draw you another card or burn your opponent, because we will have like the Earths in hand, because we'll activate the Rock to put the Holy Sue back in our hand, which is an Earth monster. Like, there are so many options, but it is so heavily dependent on what is in your hand, and because of the K9 cards, it's heavily dependent on how your opponent interacts with you in general. But this can go so much further. If you have like the Holy Sue in hand on your opponent's turn, and you like use it to summon itself and then add a monster to hand, or you have another level 5 for the JUHU, or you like manage to dump the canine monster from deck to hand, and then you use like the lantern in hand to get another guy out. Like there are so many options. But I, of course, am curious to hear what you all think down in the comment section below. So don't forget to leave a like on this video and comment down below your thoughts on the introductory guide to Vanquish Soul Canine. But also let me know if you want something a lot more in depth, because I will gladly provide that if that is something that people are interested in seeing. But do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel for more future content like this. And with that, I will see you all in the next one. See ya.